Okay, all right. So we just try to pick up few things about theoretical framework because when you will be preparing or yeah getting start with your research with your project, and then of course you have to include theoretical framework, and then you have to get like getting yourself familiar with the theory that you will be using, and also another one is actually conceptual framework. Okay, so all right, so do you think that there are any differences between theory and theoretical framework? Yes, Aganta, you want to say something?
Theory help us to predict a phenomenon, give the guides for us to predict a phenomenon.
All right. Oh, that's great. Okay. Anyone else?
A theory is a assumption,
Theory is an
a,
assumption.
a assumption that
Mhm.
is used in order to explain a certain phenomenon or occurrences.
Okay. Example, it is used to explain, not only to predict, to explain, and also we use theory to understand certain phenomena. In many cases, okay, we also use theory to challenge and to extend the existing knowledge. Okay, like for example, all right, are you familiar with media dependency theory? Okay, so media dependency theory explain how people can be so dependent on certain media, and when it happens to them, so they can, when they rely too much on media, they can be like so dependent on media. Okay, so that is according to media dependency theory. So the moment that we rely too much on media, so we're becoming so independent. So that's the explanation of that. So that is how that theory explain about uh, media dependency. Okay, the more that you become dependent on social media, and then the more it has like, it will have more effect on you. Okay, all right. So how about theoretical framework? Okay, just now it's about theory. So how about theoretical framework?
To support your research topic or title. Is it
Okay,
like
so
that?
okay, Nazwani said something about theoretical framework is required to support your title or research topic. How about the others?
What about guideline, doctor?
How about
Guideline. But
pardon? Sorry,
guideline.
guideline. Okay, so theoretical framework. So it's a guideline for your research. Okay, all right.
Doctor, is theoretical framework like an overview of the set theory?
Okay.
But it's like in visualized version. Typically, it'll be in like diagrams or like flow charts.
Oh, okay. So it's an overview of theories. Of
Uh,
what theory or of theories?
of that one theory.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I also think whether or not it's
Mm,
theories, like two or more, it
mm,
depends on the researcher. Let's say if the researcher is including one
mm.
or two theories.
Okay. So if anyone asks you what is theoretical framework, it is actually a structure. It is a structure. It
Ah,
is a structure that hold, or it is a structure that support a theory of a research study. Okay. So whenever that we mention it is a structure, so we have to explain many things related to this structure. Okay. So when you write something about your theoretical framework, for example, when you use media dependency theory, it is not only just one statement about media dependency theory. So you have to talk about the concepts about media dependency theory. So maybe you have to come up with definitions of media dependency theory. And then you also have to like provide some references how previous studies use media dependency theory that can also be relevant to your study. You explain about these concepts. And then it's not only about the definitions, it's not only about the concept, you also explain how this theory has been used in the previous studies. Okay, and then whether the previous studies extend the existing knowledge. That's why we can see that revised media dependency theory or revised model of certain theory. Okay, so if you look at the original model or the original theory, it can be maybe different from the revised one. So revised mean when people conducted their study and then they found something new in that study, so they extend. Okay, they extend that knowledge. All right. Okay. All right. So and how about conceptual? How about conceptual framework? How about conceptual framework? How is it different from theoretical framework? Okay, so
Maybe.
yeah. Anyone else? Chan, you want to say something, Chan? Is it Chan just now?
I think when it comes to theoretical framework, it's usually derived based on phenomena that we observe, right, Doctor? But I think when it comes to like based on my understanding je lah, Doctor Tao,
Hmm.
I think when it comes to our FYP and the research we're doing, the conceptual framework comes in terms of macam our IV, our DV, and our hypothesis. So that will be our conceptual framework. For instance, like our IV is, let's say, stress, and then our DV is probably like anxiety, and then there's an arrow like H1, and then the more hypotheses or the more variables you have, then you kind of just connect it together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of something that you can come up on your own, but of course it has to be based on, say, previous literature.
Yeah. Okay. That's good explanation. So it seems that you understand about the conceptual framework. Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in easier way, it is your own model. It is your own model. So whenever that people say about conceptual framework, it is actually it is about your model, and you actually try to show us, you illustrate variables. You illustrate in your model about variables that specify certain problem and also that can give direction for your study. Okay, so there are certain variables that you're trying to relate and show how this variable fits together in your model. Okay, and then at the same time you are also trying to show how that a theory can also fit very well within your conceptual framework. Yes. Okay, about demotivation, for example. Okay, you want to see how psychological motivation can affect your study, or maybe you also want to see that the other factors, like for example stress, how that can affect your performance. Okay, so if your direction, if Aganta is more interested into looking at things under psychology, okay, under psychology, then it's actually different. All right, but maybe Putri would like to look at from different angle. So maybe it's actually, maybe Putri is interested to study from the perspective of education. Okay, then although it's actually almost the same idea, but the direction will bring something different. Okay, all right. So is that clear so far about those differences?
Faham, Doctor.
Okay.